we should now take a look at some of the muscles of the body. So this is a lab PowerPoint. This is to help you be able to identify muscles when we do them in lab. So notice some of the early drawings there you see of diagramming out the muscles of the body. For a long time it was considered taboo to do things with dead people, which wasn't so stupid because dead people had diseases and you don't end up getting what they got. So, but it took a while. Eventually they started making diagrams like this, and that's how medicine really started to advance. You see, they would often use bodies like in morgues and stuff like that. So they would use ropes and things to hang them up in different positions so you could see what the muscles looked like from different angles. And did you know that it takes 462 different muscles to dig a hole deep enough that the police will never find out what you did? That meme was sent to me by my friend Jess. Jess is such a cool kid. She was one of my top students years ago, and she's now a nurse. She moved out to San Luis Obispo, right up the coast from Santa Barbara, where I used to live. And she is loving life as a nurse out there. Things are just going great. Lives with her 2 little kids out there. Sends me pictures all the time from the beaches they go to, just to make me feel bad about the fact that I'm in Arizona. No, actually, I love being in Arizona, but it does make me kind of miss. She goes to a lot of the places that I used to go to. So here you go, muscles of the body. Guess how many of these you have to know? Yeah, most of them, if not all of them. Okay, ligaments, remember, connect bone to bone. Tendons connect muscle to bone. I don't know if you can hear the bird chirping. I got my window open. It's so cool right now. The sky has turned completely dark, and I think we're going to get some rain. We got rain yesterday. We're only still at the end of May, so this is very early. The official start of our monsoon season is June 15th, and many years we don't even get rain until really first part of July. So it's very exciting. At least I hope it is. Last year we got kind of an early monsoon and then it completely died. So I hope that doesn't happen again this year, because I'm spending the last half of July up at the Grand Canyon camping by myself in the middle of nowhere. And the best time of the year to see the Grand Canyon is during the monsoon season, where there are thunderstorms every day. It's just so spectacular. Okay, so back to muscles. We talk about the origin of a muscle. That's the attachment of the muscle's tendon to the stationary bone. The insertion of muscle is the attachment of the muscle's other tendon to the movable bone. So consider biceps brachii, what you probably just call biceps. We're not going to be able to do that anymore because you have a biceps in your arm, biceps brachii, and you have one in your leg as well, biceps femoris. So we will now always have to say whether we're talking about biceps brachii or biceps femoris. So when you contract biceps brachii, that causes flexion of your elbow. Your forearm comes closer to your upper arm. Now, you might think that biceps brachii attaches to your upper arm, but it doesn't actually. It completely skips over your upper arm. A lot of big muscles do this. They completely skip over a bone. Biceps brachii is in fact attached to your scapula, and then it's also attached to a part of the radius that I made you learn, the tuberosity or tubercle on the radius. Which one is it? The radial tuberosity. Yeah. So what happens here is when biceps brachii contracts, it pulls the radius towards the scapula. That's flexion of your forearm or flexion of your elbow. So which bone is not moving? The scapula doesn't move. So it's called the origin of the muscle. And which bone moves? The radius moves. So it's called the insertion of the muscle. Now, when we had this class in the classroom, not only did I require my students to know the name of all the muscles that are on your muscle list, I required my students to know the origin and the insertion of every muscle. And fortunately, when we do this as virtual education, I just don't see how that's possible. So you guys are seriously off the hook on this one. You won't have to know origins or insertions like students during a regular semester would have to know. And in producing movements, bones act as levers and joints function as the fulcrums. If you've taken a physics class, you may know something about this. It's what's called mechanical advantage. Pulleys, for example, have mechanical advantage. Levers and fulcrums have mechanical advantage. In other words, I don't know how much your arm weighs, but it's probably less than 10 pounds. But I go to the gym, I do curls with like 90 pounds. So you can pick up more than your arm weighs. How can you do something like that? Using a mechanical advantage. So, in fact, bones are classified, joints rather, classified as first class, second class, or third class levers. And I want you to know that there are some faculty members who actually require their students to know these, but I'm not going to do that. So you're off the hook again. If you're going to be a physical therapist, you probably will have to learn some of this stuff at some point. Learning how muscles are shaped goes a long way towards helping you know the names of the muscles and what they do. So some muscles have the fibers all parallel to one another. Some muscles are called fusiform, they bulge in the middle. Some muscles are circular, those normally close things. Some muscles are triangular, all right, they have that kind of a shape. Some muscles have muscle tissue on one side of the tendon, that's pennate. Others have muscle on both sides, that's bipennate. Some muscles can have 3 of those, multipennate. The same kind of thing happens with plants, by the way, leaves, except they say pinnate instead of pennate. So, pinnate leaves, bipennate leaves. If you've ever taken any biology classes, you might know that. Now, knowing how muscles are named will go a long way towards knowing what the names mean and why they have those names will go a long way towards helping you remember. So, any muscle named rectus means that it runs parallel to the midline. So, there's a muscle in your abdomen that runs parallel to the midline. What do you suppose we should call it? How about rectus abdominis, okay? See, that's the one that has your 6-pack. As we'll see, it's actually an 8-pack. Rectus abdominis, because it runs parallel to the midline and it's found in your abdomen. It's really very easy. The name makes sense. Transverse follows the transverse or horizontal plane. So you have a muscle in your abdomen that runs horizontally. What do we call it? Transversus abdominis. Then oblique, these are running diagonal to the midline. So you have your external obliques and your internal obliques. See what's going on here? How about maximus? That means huge. That's the largest. So gluteus maximus, that's your big butt muscle. Your big butt muscle. And then you have a middle-sized one, gluteus medius, and then a smaller one, gluteus minimus. So sometimes you'll see muscles that are in groups. One will be a maximus, another will be a medius, another will be a minimus. Sometimes maybe just maximus and minimus. But see, those words help you understand what to look for. Longus and brevis. So there's adductor longus and adductor brevis in your leg. So that muscle is named because in both cases they cause adduction of your leg, moving the leg towards the midline, moving your upper leg, your femur. And one of them is longer and the other one is shorter. So one is adductor longus, the other is adductor brevis. Latissimus means the widest. So you have a big wide muscle on your back. What do you suppose it's called? Latissimus dorsi, the wide muscle on the back. See, what I'm trying to emphasize here is that the name tells you about it. So when you look at a chart or a diagram or a model, if you just think, wow, what am I looking at here? It's a big wide muscle on the back. Oh my God, it must be Latissimus dorsi. Long muscles, longissimus. Sometimes muscles, magnus will be a really big one, adductor magnus. And then large and smaller versions. So you have pectoralis major, pectoralis minor. One of them is bigger, the other one's smaller. Vastus means huge. Those are the muscles that we call your quads. 3 of them anyway, 3 of the 4 quads. Vastus lateralis. That's the huge muscle that's on the lateral side of your thigh. See, knowing what the muscles are named has to do with knowing the meanings of the words, and it makes it a lot easier, it really does. So deltoid, your shoulder, that's shaped like a triangle. Delta in Greek means triangle. The Greek letter delta was triangle shaped. On your back, you have a muscle called trapezius. Think back to the nightmare of 10th grade geometry. Remember trapezoids? That's how it got its name. It's a trapezoid-shaped muscle. Serratus means sawtooth, like the edge on a steak knife. So, you have a muscle on the front of your body that's jagged like a steak knife. What do we call it? Serratus Anterior. It's a serrated muscle on the front of your body. Rhomboid muscles, diamond shape. Remember a rhombus again from the nightmare of 10th grade geometry? So we have rhomboid major. There's also rhomboid minor. Orbicularis means circular. So Orbicularis Oculi, what do you suppose that is? Yeah, it's a circular muscle that goes around your eye. Pectinate means comb-like, so pectineus. Piriformis, pear-shaped. Platy means flat. Quad means four. Your quadriceps are four of them. Gracilis means slender, so you have a slender muscle in your leg. I'm saying it actually helps to know what these words mean. And continue with that, a lot of muscles are named for the action that they do. So I told you that you wouldn't have to know the origin and the insertion of the muscles. You do have to know the action. So for all the muscles that you have to learn, you have to be able to tell me an action of that muscle. And you can't just say it moves the arm. I will always count that wrong. Actions are always in terms of the names we learn for movements. Flexion, extension, abduction, elevation, supination, pronation, and so on, okay? So a lot of muscles will have the name flexor in them. That means it decreases a joint angle. So look at the name of this first muscle here. Flexor carpi radialis. Now just look at that for a moment. Radialis means that it's going to the radius, right? Carpi, where's your carpal region? That's in your wrist. Flexor means it flexes. So what's flexor carpi radialis? It's a muscle on the radius side that flexes your wrist. See, in other words, the name actually tells you what it is when you look at the muscle. So you'll be looking, at a diagram of muscle, and you'll think, oh geez, well, what could this muscle be? And I'll show you later, I'll remind you of this. Muscles on the anterior side of the forearm are normally flexors. On the posterior side, they're normally extensors. So you see a muscle on the anterior side of the forearm, it runs down and dead ends at the wrist, it's on the radius side, you go, oh my god, it's flexor carpi radialis, okay? How about extensor? Increases. So extensor carpi ulnaris, oh my gosh, this is going to be a muscle that goes to the wrist on the ulna side and causes extension of the wrist. Abductor and adductor. So pollicis means thumb. Abductor pollicis longus means it's the long muscle that abducts your thumb. Adductor longus, that's in your leg. It adducts your leg. It's the longer of the two. There's also adductor brevis. Levator. Put an E in front of the word levator, and what do you get? You get elevator. That raises a body part. So levator scapulae, what do you suppose that muscle does? Whenever somebody asks you that, you shrug your shoulders like you're saying, I don't know. See? Get it? It's a little joke. Levator scapula. It lifts your scapula. That makes you shrug your shoulders. All right? Depressor. Pulls things down. Depressor labii inferioris. This is a muscle that lowers your lip. Makes you pout. All right? Supinator. Pronator. Right? They make the supination and pronation movements. Sphincter closes things off. Tensor means it makes a part rigid. Rotator rotates a bone. Also, muscles will have words that tell you something about the number of tendons of origin. So biceps, the word biceps literally means two heads. That's because biceps has two origins. It starts at two different places. Triceps, it has three origins. Triceps, three heads. On your thigh, quadriceps, yeah, four heads, okay? In other cases, location, temporalis. There's a muscle on your temporal bone. What do you suppose we should call it? Temporalis. And then a fantastically named muscle, sternocleidomastoid. That connects your sternum to your cleido. Cleido is a root word meaning clavicle. And mastoid, the mastoid process, remember on your temporal bone, that big knob behind your ear? So where does sternocleidomastoid go? Oh my god, it connects your sternum to your clavicle to your mastoid process. So the names of muscles, I'm stressing this. Take time to look at these words and get them into your head. Because if you take a little, sometimes I hear people say, oh, I don't want to learn more than I have to. No, you're missing the point. Learning the names of the muscles will make it easier later on. And so it'll mean that you'll remember better and you'll get more things right, okay? So take some time. Learn the names of muscles, the words that are used to name them. It will pay you back many times over. I promise it really will.